You are not overthinking because your mind is too active. You are overthinking because you keep treating every thought like an emergency. That is the part most people never notice. A thought appears, and instantly you follow it. A memory, a fear, a small possibility. Then another one comes, and another. And before you realize it, you are no longer living your day. You are trapped inside your head, reacting to things that have not even happened. That is why overthinking feels so exhausting. It is not just thinking. It is mental chasing. It is your mind grabbing one idea, then another, until a simple moment becomes pressure, tension, and noise. A late reply becomes rejection. A small mistake becomes proof that something is wrong with you. A normal problem becomes a disaster in your imagination. And the worst part is this. The more you try to force your mind to calm down, the louder it often becomes. Because now you are fighting the thought, judging the thought, and creating new thoughts about the old ones. So the loop keeps feeding itself. This is where most advice fails. People tell you to think positive, to relax, to stop worrying. But when your mind is spinning, that advice feels useless. Because the real problem is not that you have thoughts. The real problem is that you have never been taught what to do when they appear. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. Not because it teaches you to control every thought, and not because it promises a perfectly silent mind. It teaches something far more useful. How to stop obeying every thought that enters your head. In this video, I am going to walk you through 8 ancient Stoic habits that can help you break that pattern. Slow the noise, and finally feel some space inside your own mind again. Not by escaping life, but by learning how to stand still while your thoughts pass through. If your mind never seems to stop, it is not because something is wrong with you. It is because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Think about it. Your mind is built to scan for problems, to predict what could go wrong, to replay what already happened and figure out how to avoid pain next time. That sounds useful, and sometimes it is. But here is where it turns against you. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a thought about a possible threat. So when you imagine something going wrong, your body reacts as if it is already happening. Your heart tightens. Your attention locks in. Your mind starts searching for answers. And that is when the loop begins. One thought leads to another. Then another. What if I said the wrong thing? What if they think less of me? What if this becomes a bigger problem? You are not solving anything. You are just feeding the loop. And the more you stay inside it, the more real it feels. This is why overthinking is so convincing. Because it feels like you are doing something important. It feels like control. But in reality, you are just reacting, again and again, to things that may never even happen. And the moment you try to stop it by force, don't think about it. Calm down. Just relax. It backfires. Because now you are adding pressure on top of pressure. Now you are reacting not only to the thought, but to the fact that it exists. That is why your mind feels noisy all the time. Not because there are too many thoughts, but because you keep stepping into every single one. And once you see that clearly, everything starts to change. Because now the goal is no longer to control your mind. The goal is to stop following it blindly. And that is exactly where these Stoic habits begin. So what do you actually do when a thought shows up? Because that is the exact moment everything starts. Not later. Not when you are already overwhelmed. Right there. The first second a thought appears. This is where most people lose control. Without even realizing it, a thought comes in. And instantly, you react. You follow it. You analyze it. You try to solve it. And that reaction is what pulls you into overthinking. So the first habit is simple. But it is not easy. Habit 1. Delay your reaction. When a thought appears, do nothing. Not for 5 minutes. Not for some perfect moment. Just for a few seconds. Let it be there. without touching it. This sounds small, almost too small to matter. But this is where the shift begins. Because for the first time, you are not automatically obeying what your mind throws at you. Let me give you something real. You send a message. They do not reply. A thought appears. Maybe I said something wrong. Normally, you would follow it instantly. You would check the message again. Replay what you said. Start building scenarios. Maybe they are losing interest. Maybe they are annoyed. Maybe you should send another message. And now, you are already inside the loop. But this time, you do something different. You pause. You notice the thought? And you wait. Just a few seconds. You do not answer it. You do not fight it. You just let it exist. And something interesting happens. It starts to lose urgency. Because most thoughts survive on your reaction. Without it, they weaken. Not immediately, but enough for you to see it instead of becoming it. This is the first break in the loop. And once you feel that even once, you realize something important. You do not have to follow everything your mind says. Now, the second habit makes this even stronger. Because sometimes, just waiting is not enough. Some thoughts are sticky. They come back. Again and again. They knock louder each time. Trying to pull you in. That is where habit 2 comes in. Habit 2. Name the thought. Instead of getting lost in it, you label it. Clearly. Simply. This is anxiety. This is overthinking. This is just a possibility. Not a fact. Not reality. Just a mental event. This might sound small, but it changes everything. Because the moment you name something, you create distance from it. You are no longer inside the thought. You are looking at it. Let's go back to the same situation. Still no reply. The thought shows up again. Something is wrong. This time, instead of following it, you say, quietly, this is just anxiety. And you stop there. You do not argue with it. You do not try to prove it wrong. You just place it where it belongs. Inside your mind, not in reality. And once it has a name, it becomes easier to let it pass. Think of it like this. Before, your thoughts felt like commands. Now, they are just signals. And you get to decide which ones deserve your attention. This is where control actually begins. Not by stopping thoughts, but by changing your relationship with them. Because most of the time, the problem is not what you think. It is how quickly you believe it, and how automatically you follow it. So from now on, try this. Next time a thought appears, pause. Just a few seconds. Then name it. Do not rush. Do not react. Just watch. At first, it will feel strange. Your mind will still try to pull you back in. That is normal. But every time you pause, every time you name it, you are training something deeper. You are teaching your mind that it does not control you anymore. And that is the beginning of real calm. By now, you start to see something. It is not the first thought that traps you. It is what you do after it. Because one thought, by itself, is harmless. But the moment you start building on it, that is when it turns into overthinking. So here is the next shift. Habit 3. Cut the story early. Most people do not realize this. They think overthinking comes from having too many thoughts. But that is not true. It comes from turning one small thought into a full story. Let's look at something simple. Your boss sends a short message. Can we talk tomorrow? That is it. One sentence. But your mind does not stop there. What did I do wrong? Did I mess something up? Am I in trouble? Is this about my performance? Now you are not dealing with reality anymore. You are dealing with a story your mind created. And the longer you stay in it, the more real it feels. That is why it is so hard to escape. Because you are not reacting to facts. You are reacting to your own imagination. So what do? You cut it early. Right at the first layer. The moment you notice your mind starting to build a story, you stop adding to it. You do not continue the sentence. You do not follow the what if. You go back to what is real. The message was short. That is all I know. Everything else is just noise. This does not mean you ignore the situation. It means you refuse to create extra suffering on top of what already exists. And this is where most people finally feel relief. Not because the problem disappears, but because they stop making it bigger than it is. Now, there is another problem. Sometimes, even when you stop the story, your mind still feels loud, heavy, restless, like there is too much happening inside. That is because you are still stuck in your head. So the next habit is not about thinking at all. It is about leaving your mind without running away from it. Habit 4. Return to the body. When your mind is spinning, you do not need more thoughts. You need something real, something physical, something that exists outside the noise. Right now, here is how simple it can be. You feel your breath, not forcing it, not controlling it, just noticing it, in and out. Or you feel your hands, the weight, the temperature, the slight tension in your fingers, or your feet touching the ground, the pressure, the contact. Nothing complicated, but something real. Let me show you how this works in real life. You are lying in bed. Your mind is replaying something that happened earlier. A conversation, a mistake, something you wish you said differently. And it keeps looping. Normally, you stay there, thinking, replaying, judging. But this time, you shift. You bring your attention to your breath. Slowly, you feel your chest rise and fall. At first, your thoughts are still there. They do not disappear. But something changes. They are no longer the center. You are not inside them anymore. You are here, in your body. And the more you stay there, the quieter your mind becomes. Not forced, not controlled, just quieter. Because attention is limited. When you bring it back to your body, you take it away from the noise. And that is the key. You are not trying to win against your thoughts. You are simply choosing where to stand. Either inside the storm, or outside of it. Most people try to fix their mind from inside the chaos. But that rarely works. You need to step out first. Feel something real. Anchor yourself. Then the mind begins to settle on its own. So from now on, when you notice a story starting, cut it early. And when the noise does not stop, leave your head. Come back to your body. It is always there. It is always real. And it is always quieter than your thoughts. At this point, you already see the pattern. Thoughts appear. You react. And the reaction creates more noise. Now we go deeper. Because there are two habits that quietly keep overthinking alive every single day. And most people never question them. They think it is normal. But it is not. It is trained. Habit 5. Limit mental rehearsal. This one is dangerous. Because it feels productive. You think you are preparing. But most of the time, you are just repeating the same scenario again and again. Think about this. You have a conversation coming up. Maybe with your boss. Maybe with someone you care about. So your mind starts rehearsing. What should I say? What if they react like this? What if I say it wrong? At first, it feels helpful. But then it keeps going. You replay the same thing 10 times, 20 times, each time adding more pressure. Now the situation feels bigger than it actually is. Now you are not preparing anymore. You are exhausting yourself before it even happens. And when the moment finally comes, you are already tense, already tired, already inside your head. So what do you do instead? You prepare once, clearly, simply. You think about what matters. Maybe 1 or 2 key points. Then you stop. You do not keep looping. You do not try to simulate every possible outcome. Because real life does not follow your script. It never does. And the more you try to control it in your head, the more anxious you become. So you replace repetition with trust. You trust that you can respond in the moment. Not perfectly, but enough. That alone cuts a huge amount of mental noise. Now the second habit is even deeper, because it sits underneath everything. Habit 6. Accept uncertainty. Most overthinking is just resistance. Resistance to not knowing. Resistance to things being unclear. You want answers now. You want certainty. You want to feel safe before anything happens. But life does not work like that. And your mind hates that. So it tries to fill the gap. With guesses. With scenarios. With fear. Let's take something simple again. You send a message. No reply. Time passes. Your mind starts asking, what does this mean? Why are they not answering? Did I do something wrong? But the truth is, you do not know. And that is the uncomfortable part. So your mind creates answers, even if they are negative. Because uncertainty feels worse than a bad explanation. At least a bad explanation feels like control. So how do you break this? You stop trying to resolve uncertainty immediately. You let it exist. Instead of asking, what if something is wrong? You shift slightly. If something is wrong, I will handle it. That is it. You do not need to solve it right now. You do not need to predict everything. You just need to trust your ability to respond when reality actually shows up. This changes everything. Because now, you are not chasing certainty. You are building stability. And stability is quieter. It does not need constant answers. It does not panic in silence. It waits calmly. And the more you practice this, the less your mind needs to fill every gap. Because it knows you will be fine either way. So from now on, when you catch yourself replaying something over and over, ask yourself, am I preparing or just repeating? And when you feel that tension from not knowing, do not rush to fix it. Let it be there, unresolved. Because not everything needs an answer right now. And the moment you stop chasing answers, your mind finally gets a chance to rest. By now, something should feel different. Not because your thoughts are gone, but because you are starting to see them more clearly. And once you see them clearly, you begin to notice something deeper. A lot of your anxiety does not come from what is happening. It comes from what you expect to happen. From the outcome you are trying to control. So here is the next shift. And this one goes deeper than all the others. Habit 7. Detach from the outcome. Most people do not realize this. They think they are stressed because of the situation. But look closer. It is not the situation. It is the result they are holding onto. You go into a conversation, but in your head, you already decided how it should go. You send a message, but you expect a certain kind of reply. You do something important, but you need it to work out in a specific way. And when reality does not match that expectation, your mind reacts hard, because it feels like something went wrong. But what really happened is simple. Reality did not follow your script. And your mind does not like losing control. So it tries to fix it. It replays. It analyzes. It questions everything, trying to pull the outcome back into place. But the more you hold onto that outcome, the more pressure you create. And the more pressure you feel, the louder your mind becomes. So what does it mean to detach? It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become passive. It means you separate two things. What you do, and what happens after. You focus fully on your action. You show up. You speak clearly. You do what you can. And then, you let go of the rest. Because the result is not fully yours. It never was. There are too many variables. Too many factors outside your control. Other people. Timing. Circumstances. Trying to control all of that in your head is what creates the noise. So instead of asking, "What if this does not go the way I want?" you shift the question, "Did I do my part well?" That is something you can answer. That is something you can improve. And that is something that gives you stability. Because now, your peace does not depend on outcomes. It depends on your actions. And actions are always in your control. Think about how different that feels. You walk into a situation, not trying to force a result, but ready to handle whatever comes. No script, no pressure, just presence. And when you live like that, something surprising happens. Your mind becomes quieter. Not because life is predictable, but because you are no longer trying to control what is unpredictable. You stop chasing certainty. You stop forcing outcomes. And in that space, your thoughts lose their power. Because there is nothing left to fix. Nothing left to control. Only something to do. And that is enough. At this point, you already have the tools. You know how to pause. How to name a thought. How to cut the story. How to come back to your body. How to stop repeating the same loop. And how to let go of outcomes. But there is one problem. If you only use these when things get bad, it will always feel like a fight. So the final habit is not about reacting. It is about building a baseline. Something you do every day, so your mind does not get overloaded in the first place. Habit 8. Create a daily reset. Not something complicated. Not a perfect routine. Just a small space where nothing is happening. No phone. No input. No distraction. Just you. And a quiet moment. This is where most people struggle. Because they are used to filling every gap. Scrolling. Watching. Listening. Always feeding the mind something. So when there is nothing, it feels uncomfortable. Almost empty. But that empty space is exactly what your mind needs. Because without it, everything just keeps stacking. Thought after thought. Day after day. No break. No release. Until your head feels heavy. Even when nothing is wrong. So you create a reset. 5 minutes. Maybe 10. You sit. You do not try to think about anything important. You do not try to fix your life. You just sit and let things settle. Thoughts will still come. That is normal. But now you know what to do. You do not follow them. You do not build on them. You just let them pass. Like background noise. And slowly, your system resets. Let me make this real. You wake up. Instead of grabbing your phone immediately, you sit for a moment. Just breathing. Just being there. Or later in the day. After work. Before sleep. You give yourself a short pause. No input. No stimulation. Just space. At first, it might feel pointless. Like you are doing nothing. But that is the point. Because your mind has been doing too much. For too long. And this is how you balance it. Not by forcing silence, but by creating room for silence to appear. And once you have this daily reset, everything else becomes easier. You notice thoughts faster. You react less. You recover quicker. Because your baseline is calmer. You are not starting from chaos anymore. You are starting from stability. And from that place, control feels natural. Not forced. Not exhausting. Just steady. So do not wait until your mind is overwhelmed. To fix it, build this habit when things are normal. So when life gets loud, you already know how to return. At the end of all this, nothing outside you has really changed. Your life is still the same. The same people. The same responsibilities. The same uncertainty. But something inside you is different. Because now you see it. Thoughts will always appear. That never stops. A random worry. A memory. A possibility that makes no sense. They come. Without permission. And they leave. On their own. The only thing that ever made them powerful was how quickly you followed them. How easily you believed them. How automatically you reacted. But now, there is a gap. A small space. Between the thought and your response. And inside that space, there is control. Not loud control. Not forced. But quiet. Stable. Yours. You no longer need to fight your mind. You no longer need to silence every thought. You just stop giving all of them your attention. And that changes everything. Because peace was never about having no thoughts. It was about not being controlled by them. So the next time your mind starts to race, do not panic. Do not try to shut it down. Just step back. Pause. Notice what is happening. Let it pass. And come back to what is real. Your breath. Your body. This moment. Again and again. That is the practice. Simple. But not easy. And the more you do it, the more your mind begins to trust you. It stops pulling so hard. It stops demanding your attention all the time. Because it knows you will not chase every signal anymore. And that is when things become quiet. Not empty, but clear. So if there is one thing to take from this, it is this. You do not need to control your thoughts. You only need to stop obeying them. Start with one habit. Just one. Pause before reacting. Name the thought. Or simply sit in silence for a few minutes. That is enough. And if this helped you see your mind a little more clearly, stay with this path. Because the calmer your mind becomes, the stronger you become. Quietly.